everybody, welcome back to Mom Meets World. I'm Angela Yusuf, founder of Radiant Heart Center VA.
And I'm Khyati Desai-Seltzer, owner of Vyana Infant Massage. And on today's show we have Susan Howard, who is a registered nurse and an international board certified lactation consultant. She also has a local practice in the Arlington area if you're lucky to be here. And we are going to delve into all things breastfeeding, yes, which is a favorite topic of ours. Yes. And we're so excited to learn a lot from Susan and to understand the challenges that moms are facing around the world with breastfeeding. Yeah. Thank you for being here.
Oh, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. So Susan, can you tell us exactly what you do?
My background is I'm a registered nurse and a board certified lactation consultant. So in that role, I help new mothers and babies with their feeding experience. And I'm really there to help from preconception to prenatal through birth, getting breastfeeding started, and then all the way through the return to work challenges, as well as all the way up until weaning.
What is your story? What led you to doing this important work?
I have always been fascinated with the mother-baby dyad. I didn't think of it in those terms as a teenager. I knew I wanted to work with mothers and babies.
Oh wow, cool.
Yes. I knew when I went to nursing school that I wanted to be a labor and delivery nurse. I kind of had a shift going from after I had my children. I thought I knew a lot about breastfeeding. I did not. I did not.
We talk a lot about the things we thought we knew.
I know, we're like, oh yeah, we're good. Just learning pregnancy, and then once you're a mom, you're great. No.
No. And I think it was my third child who was really transformative for me. She was a very difficult feeder. We had lots of challenges, and it really motivated me. And it fills my cup. I love helping new moms and babies sort of experience this other side of motherhood.
Awesome. So do you do workshops, classes, one-on-one?
I do all of the above.
Awesome.
Yes. So in my primary role, I do in-home visits and work with new families. I also started and I moderate a breastfeeding support group at our local hospital, Virginia Hospital Center. They've been very instrumental and supportive of the program. It's been going for 10 years. I started it when I was pregnant with my third.
Wow, cool.
Little did I know.
Little did you know. I was just thinking, wow.
Little did I know, yes. And it is a safe space for moms to come and ask questions and find really good, accurate information and resources. And we try to keep it very real.
Yeah. So what are some of the challenges that you see moms experiencing with breastfeeding?
I think some of the biggest challenges mothers have is there's so much focus on the birth.
Yeah.
And having been a labor and delivery nurse, birth is over in about a day. For some moms, it's a little bit longer, but it's an over and done experience. And then you have this new creature. Who needs you 24/7. And I find that when families have taken the time to really learn about newborn behaviors and what to expect, it helps at transition. And I have a lot of families tell me that they didn't take a breastfeeding class and they wished they had. They took lots of classes on infant skills and infant care, but that feeding piece was missing. And there's this gigantic disconnect between what we think newborns should be doing and what they are really doing. And we get so many mixed messages from media, we get mixed messages from our friends on what this newborn period will look like. And when it doesn't jive with our expectations, I think it really sets us up for some unnecessary challenges. One of my other roles is I teach a prenatal breastfeeding class. It's 2.5 hours. It's a long class. And families, and I encourage partners to come. I think that's one of the critical elements to this. We know the #1 determinant of long-term breastfeeding success is partner support and partner engagement. And when partners are participating, they also begin to see how they can be really supportive of this whole journey. And I think it helps fill in some knowledge gaps as well on what do the babies do? What's the process for milk coming in? I find a lot of families have this expectation that on day one there's going to be copious amounts of like white milk flowing from the breast. And that's not the case, that there's that colostrum, which is their first inoculation. But it's like honey in color, and even the rate that it flows, it's very slow, and it kind of comes drip by drip. And that understanding that is what upregulates the system, and babies need to eat frequently, and we call feed early and often is our mantra. To help bring that milk in. I think another one of the big challenges that happens is that with early discharge, mothers are going home before their milk has even come in. And so there's so much physiologically changing on days 3, 4, and 5 when that milk is coming in, and then we're struggling with engorgement. And if we don't have just a little bit of background and resource on how do I manage this stage, it throws a lot of families under the bus.
Totally. Oh, that was my experience. And fortunately, I birthed my babies at home, so I had a midwife and I had a lactation consultant built into the team. Mm-hmm. And so when things changed, because they changed, I called Casey and she just said, "Oh, I'm actually close by, I'll come by." And I started crying out of relief because it was so overwhelming. And actually, pre-industrialization in the United States, women used to stay in the hospital at least for 5 days. So they did have that support. Mm-hmm. It's only more recently that we don't.
Right.
So I think it's so important to understand some kind of basics. And I agree too with the partner knowing, because I started freaking out and my husband said, "Remember in the breastfeeding class they said this?" And I said, "No."
Yes.
And he goes, "They did." And as soon as he said it, and he was there with me.
Yes.
Because it is something that was important to our family, but the responsibility shouldn't just fall on the woman or the chest breast feeder of the family.
Right. Yeah. And I try to highlight to the partners that are in class and have them understand that this is really important that you're here. You are going to remember details that mother will forget. Yes. And having you there to offer those gentle reminders. And sometimes it's the simple things like every time mama's feeding, bring her something to drink. She's going to be super thirsty. In a matter of days to weeks, we're going to be making 25 to 35 ounces of milk every feeding. Throughout the day. Yeah. And you get thirsty. And even thinking about things like bring her something to eat, but be thoughtful about it. Because generally she's going to be eating with one hand. So that bowl of soup is probably not super practical.
Right.
But
a big sandwich.
Right. But if we can find foods that are more finger foods, or we can find a way to arrange it, it's a very practical way to be involved and to be helpful.
And that's important for partners, because I think when they're watching the breastfeeding experience or bonding happening, they do feel left out. And so if they know they're doing something to contribute, everyone wins.
And I'm a huge fan of encouraging partners to be engaged, saying, why don't you offer to burp the baby in between sides? But I love teaching our dads and partners, instead of putting the baby up here on the chest to burp, but if they'll just prop them on their lap, take their hand and kind of cup the baby's face, take your palm, support the baby's back, and if we rotate them in a slow circle, you'll get a burp almost immediately.
No way.
Wow. I've never seen that before.
And if you think about this, envision the stomach as, bear with me here, but a water balloon, okay? And it has a neck with it. So I'm holding the water balloon by the neck, and there's a little air bubble in here, right? So if I take my water balloon and I rotate it in a circle, I'm going to help that air bubble find the escape valve, and it will go right up, as opposed to keeping the baby stationary and I just keep patting and patting and patting, and I'm hopeful that, well, maybe that air bubble will find the escape valve.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
I'm not having a newborn to find this out, but I will borrow someone's newborn.
So, yes.
Would love to check
Sometimes we have to give a little bit of guidance and tell dads.
Don't do it too fast. Very gently.
Right. We need to go nice and slow. And this gives mom a chance that if she needs to have, a bio break in between, and gives everyone a little chance to reset. I think helping families feel really engaged and helping partners feel like they have a role besides when they feel really left out of the feeding piece.
And I think with breastfeeding, everyone thinks it's just natural, instinctual. You don't really need to take a class. It's going to be fine. And I think every person who's gone through it tells other moms, like, please, you take a breastfeeding class, have your partner. I'm so glad my husband, because he was like, she was saying, remembering things that I didn't, able to like put snacks around, remind me of things, like help me not get discouraged. It was so key. Even though he resisted, he was so glad that he did it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. I usually make it a point of welcoming the dads and partners that are there because you know they're there against their will.
Yeah, they're just like,
what am I doing here?
Okay, so Khyati brings up a good point. People think breastfeeding is so natural, but can you explain some common misconceptions that you see families having, women having about breastfeeding?
Yes. I think lots of families believe that breastfeeding is natural and it's easy, and after birth, baby's just going to know exactly what to do. And sometimes our babies are a little traumatized by the birth experience or their birth journey and don't always follow the script like they're supposed to. We know things like aggressive or deep suctioning in their mouth can sometimes turn babies off from wanting to suck for a little bit. A baby who has a vacuum delivery and has a lot of tension pulled onto their head, it can change some of those cranial bones. It can make sucking a little uncomfortable. Sometimes our babies come out really overly medicated and they're not super enthusiastic about doing their breast crawl like they're supposed to. But I truly think that our families have this idea that, well, it's natural. I have two boobs and I'm going to have a baby and the baby's just going to know what to do. But it makes me think of a story that I read recently that happened at the Philadelphia Zoo. So there was have you read this?
Yes.
Yes.
That's amazing.
That there was a gorilla who was born and bred in captivity. When she was of mothering age, she was also
she got pregnant.
She got pregnant, yes, in captivity, but she had never had any experience being around other mother gorillas or newborns and had no idea like what her role was. So when the first gorilla baby was born, she didn't know what to do, and he didn't survive.
But then she started imitating the moms who were bringing the babies to the zoo and facing her baby outward, which is why the baby didn't survive.
Yes.
Because that was all she could understand of how to take care of her baby.
Right, because the babies were looking outward. So when she was pregnant again the second time, the zookeeper had the idea of inviting the La Leche League, the local La Leche League, and inviting mothers and babies to come and feed their babies so the gorilla could watch. And at first she wasn't paying much attention, but as their due date came closer, she started paying a little bit more attention. Yeah. And I think this just sort of pulls into our instincts that we do have this innate need to connect with other mothers, particularly as we come towards the end of our pregnancy. And then it appeared that the gorilla was starting to go back to some old behaviors, so they quick asked for more La Leche League members to come and start demonstrating, and she was paying attention and she was copying what they were doing, and little baby gorilla started thriving. But what I think is really neat about this is it just reinforces that we are not meant to mother alone. And in our current society and environment, we tend to think that we come into our homes and we do our thing, and if I have questions or I just go to social media for that, and it just doesn't replace in-person support or finding your village, finding your community. And then the breastfeeding groups that I support and moderate, one of the things that is so much fun for me to stand back and watch is our first timers and our newbies who are coming in with their new babies, and they're a little uncomfortable about feeding, and they start to see how other mothers are positioning their babies, and instead of doing like your traditional upright cross cradle approach, you notice that they're starting to like lean back because that other mom's over there, she looks really comfortable. And they're like, wow, you mean I can hold my baby in this position? And look at that. Wait, the baby's hands are up here? Oh, I thought I had to get their hands out of the way. But we're meant to touch our food when we eat. And that's one of those baby's instincts where we touch our food when we're eating. And you start to see mothers picking up clues from one another and putting it into practice with very little guidance.
And the guidance is just like seeing it and being in it.
Yes, and when you start talking about how birth shifts our brain and our receptivity and how we start learning from more left brain, right brain, how that shift happens. And it's one of the challenges with discharge information is that it's often printed materials, but our mothers after birth, their brain is different. And printed materials don't sink in. We are hardwired to need to show us. Let me experience it. Let me copy what you're doing.
Senses are so heightened.
Yes.
You know.
Yes.
Wow, I love that story. I didn't know the details about the mom or the second baby not thriving at first. I thought they just had a leche once and
no, they brought them back in, and Mama Gorilla started paying attention and mimicking and copying what the mothers were doing.
Wow. Yeah, thank you for reminding our viewers how important it is to find that community, because right now, and that's part of why we're doing this show, right now people are just at home. They don't know another way. For some women it feels very overwhelming to go out and be in a group, or
Yes, and they're afraid that their baby's going to cry, or their baby's going to have to change a diaper, and somehow we think our babies need to be perfect, and babies cry, and babies need to eat, and babies poop, and babies have blowouts, and moms cry, and sometimes mommies have blowouts too, because mommies and babies are wearing diapers in the beginning.
Right, absolutely.
And I think we need to find a way to normalize this and help get families beyond like what it looks like to be the Pinterest. I call it the Pinterest parent.
So true.
Yes.
And then we feel like we have to have the perfect nursery and the perfect baby ensembles and the right gear, and some of that is secondary.
Oh yeah, we talk about that as well.
Yes, and there's so much marketing that goes into the stuff rather than the skills that go into helping us learn to be new mothers.
Yeah. And that's because we have a lack of community. We don't have our mothers and aunts and grandmothers teaching us how to breastfeed or teaching us how to, do all the things that a baby, because no one knows it. We learn it from other women. Because we don't have that, we go to Google or social media, we have all the stuff that people tell us we need.
Yep.
So we're really, another kind of mission of ours is to get people to focus on what services are we going to need after baby comes. Like the stroller, all that is fine, but you're going to need a lactation consultant, you're going to need a sleep coach, if you can have a postpartum doula, an infant massage instructor. That's going to be your community that you don't have because we live in modern industrial society.
Yes.
And we've also talked about how meeting people, I always tell people, meet Susan before you have your baby, right? Because when you're in the thick of it, to think I have to find a Susan or find someone else to help me is beyond overwhelming versus, oh yeah, remember we talked to Susan, I'm just going to call her, whether it's the mom or the partner, whoever it is. It's so much better to make that relationship beforehand when you're like, what can I do? I'm trying to figure out how to prepare. Talk to people and have a team of people of support set up.
Yes. And I bet Adrienne Griffin also highlighted that as well.
Yeah.
Have your team. And I think that goes back to thinking about looking at what your insurance covers. For example, finding out who's in network.
Put it on your registry.
Yes, putting a request for a gift card or a gift certificate to cover lactation expenses. You can have all the creams and ointments and products in the world,
Right.
but it doesn't necessarily help you with the learning the skill piece of it. I usually do sort of a one-time experience. I do give some pretty specific guidelines on. There's a validated tool that's published by University of Stanford, and it's a 9-question interview that you ask yourself on days 5 to 7, and it asks very specifically about, is the baby eating 8 to 10 times a day? Does the baby seem satisfied after feedings? Do the breasts feel softer afterwards? Are you seeing, 5 to 7 wet diapers? Is your baby stooling? Has it turned to yellow stool, that breastfeeding stool? So giving families some specific resources and saying, if you're saying no to any of these questions, you need help.
Wow.
To help, and that was the purpose of the tool, is to say, if you say no to any of these questions, this is your clue that you need help. You and your baby need help with feeding.
Wow. That's great.
And trying to help families, because even if they don't remember any of the logistics and some of the little tips and tricks, because I don't really expect them to remember it, but placental shunting is a very real thing, where all the blood gets diverted from your brain to your placenta. But I want and I encourage them, get out your phones, take a picture of this slide, because this is what I want you to refer to. This is going to be your litmus test of, do I need help?
Wow.
But you were asking about other classes that I teach. I do teach a return to work class, and we talk a lot about pumping and being really efficient with your pump and getting to know it as a tool, as a product, knowing how milk is made and how we can stimulate it. You can eat lots and lots of lactation cookies, but the most effective tool is to remove the milk and making sure you're using the best pump that's available to you.
What do you mean remove the milk from the cookie?
Excellent point.
Empty the breast out so it
Yes.
more.
Right. So lots of families think that, I'll just eat lactation cookies and eat oatmeal and that will make me make more milk.
Got it.
But if we're not removing the milk,
Pumping out the milk from your breast.
or having a baby who can
Who can drain.
effectively drain the breast.
Yeah.
Exactly. And then we get into the work logistics. Do you travel for work? Do you work long intensive days? Do you have pump breaks?
Yeah.
Like helping families think through the logistics, because sometimes the logistics seem so overwhelming. And I like to think in my return to work class it's a logistics class.
Absolutely.
You talked about the types of nipples too, which is so important.
Oh yes, for bottle nipples.
Yeah.
For bottle nipples, but and I think you were saying when you're introducing it or getting baby to be ready to go back to work, whoever's going to be the caretaker, get these, don't get these.
Right. We talk about shoulderless bottle teats. We call them teats so we don't confuse them with human nipples.
Oh.
No, yes.
So that's actually a good point. If we do tell our listeners focus on the services over the goods, but if you were to name a couple of your favorite must-have breastfeeding supplies for a new mom, what would you recommend?
Oh, my favorite. Okay, so for sore nipples, I really like the silverettes. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. They're like these silver discs. They kind of remind me of Madonna nipple jewelry. Yes, you wear them over your nipples. Silver's been around for centuries, and we're using it for healing properties. It's a natural antibacterial, a natural antifungal.
Oh my God.
There are no ointments that are necessary, and it's great for healing sore nipples.
God,
So you put them on when baby's not nursing?
Yeah.
As a healing?
Wow.
And
okay.
yes, and then you don't have to have your little tube of ointment. You have to wipe it
coconut
off.
And
Right.
you're cute. Yeah, restaining your shirts. I would.
Right.
So
Essential is a support person.
Yes.
I don't know where you go and find one of those.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that on Amazon, but I think a support person, and I don't even advocate a specific nursing pillow.
Okay.
I like using regular pillows. They're so much more malleable.
Yeah.
They kind of fit the bill. I think having a nursing attire is really helpful.
Yeah.
Something to contain the girls.
So they don't get sore. Okay.
Yes. The needs are really pretty small.
Yeah. I think the support person is key.
Is key.
And silverettes.
Yeah.
What do you wish pregnant women or new moms knew?
Oh, I wish pregnant moms and new moms would know a little bit more about breastfeeding and how babies behave. I wish families would bear in mind that birth is over in a day.
Yeah.
And feeding your baby is something you will do for many, many, many years, whether or not it is at your breast with a bottle. But we will continue feeding our babies for years to come. And that even traumatic births, there can be resolution, that there is healing that happens after birth, and that this is a stage and chapter in your life, feeding your baby. I also, one of the classes that I teach is a starting solids class. And for families who didn't have the breastfeeding journey that they were hoping for, one of the things I love about this next chapter of Starting Solids is that it's the great equalizer. Regardless of what your feeding journey was like in the beginning, every baby starts solids. And it's a chance to kind of experience the newness in a different perspective.
I love that approach. It's really important because there are plenty of women who have regrets or wishes, and you're right, every baby starts solid.
Every baby.
So to have that perspective of this new beautiful experience with them.
Right. You get to share it and kind of going in with a refreshed perspective. And we talk a lot about, because my focus is feeding in the first year. Is helping families transition from their current milk feeding situation, whether or not it's bottle or breast, whether or not it's breast milk or formula, that we get to help them start this new journey together.
That's awesome.
And it's just fresh on my mind because I just taught it this weekend.
Cool. So Susan, what advice would you give to someone who is considering having the support of a lactation consultant?
First thing I would have you consider is you need one.
Yes, that's good.
Get one.
So,
secondly, I would encourage you to ask your friends, ask around, find recommendations, find folks who look at their social media pages, look on their website. Find someone who you think you're going to gel with. If you can have a lactation consultant come and do an in-home visit, I think that's even better, to be comfortable in your own space. You can still get good help if you need to go to an office, but learning to feed in your space, where we can show you how to adjust your pillows and try things that work for you, is invaluable.
Yeah. And when do you recommend doing that home visit? While mom is still pregnant?
Ooh, a prenatal visit? I would say if you have concerns outside of, if you've attended a breastfeeding class and you feel like you have some lingering questions, or you have some circumstances that were not necessarily covered. Say you've had a breast reduction, perhaps you've had breast implants, maybe you've had radiation to one of your breasts. If you have other concerns, that I would encourage meeting one-on-one for a prenatal visit.
Great.
Yeah.
And there's so much more that we can talk about with breastfeeding. I know we've heard Susan talk, and there's a lot that we can cover, so we might have to do a part 2.
Yeah. We'll come up with another. You can send in your questions if you have them.
Let's do a starting solids talk.
Yes.
I'm so excited.
Let's do a bottle skills talk.
Okay, she's coming back at least twice.
And as she mentioned, Susan helps with preconception through baby's first year of feeding.
Yeah.
So there's so much more that we can cover. And I know going back to work, at least for me, was really challenging. Breastfeeding or pumping was no fun.
Let's do a return to work one.
That's another great one.
Susan,
send us your ideas. In the meantime, Susan's information is below. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. Our websites are below as well.
And as they say, ain't no hood like the motherhood. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.
Thanks, Susan.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.